If you watched my Quilting Misadventure video, you know that I had a special project in mind for all of these strips. So when I got started on this project, the first thing I did was mark the batting that I was going to use for this, and I discovered that instead of needing 18 strips like I thought, I need 23 strips. So I had to choose some extra fabrics for my stash to go along with that. So now though, I'm ready to get started on this project, and the first thing I need to do is to mark. I already have one side marked, but I can't see the red stripes very well, so I'm going to remark it with a black ink pen, because this is going to be inside the bag and you're not going to be able to see it. So batting is really hard to mark on, and I'm not sure if you can actually see that. I used a red heat erasable pen to mark the lines on it, and basically they are just guidelines anyway, so that's how I marked the batting. Basically what I'm doing to prepare these strips is to lay them all down in a straight line, and then I'm going to take my ruler and cut them all to 2.5 inch strips. And I need a new blade, but right now it's gonna have to do. And then so when you're finished, you get a 2.5 inch strip. Okay, so now comes the more challenging part of this project. So first we're gonna lay down the backing fabric here, and then going to lay down the batting and center that batting in the middle of our backing fabric. And so now we're going to have to start laying down the pattern on the strips. And this is a little bit more challenging because I don't know how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to play around with it, and I'll come back and show you the finished product, or the finished design. This is the colorway I chose for this side of the bag. So now what I'm going to do is label these. The center stripe will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And so I sew them in that order, from center going outward on either side. This is the colorway for the other side. They are not identical. They are just matching that spectrum of color. So now I have taken all the strips off and put them in the order that I'm going to sew them down. So to start this project, what we do is start with strip 1 and strip 2. But before we actually sew this, we need to pin down the first strip, at least to the batting. You don't have to go all the way through. It just needs to be pinned down to the batting. And this will hold this in place while we're sewing it. And so when we have this strip pinned down, we're going to take strip 2 and flip it upside down where it's right sides together. And then we're going to repeat that process and pin that in place so it doesn't move while we're sewing it. And once we have everything pinned down, now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way down this side. Okay, I am just using plain white thread for this. I'm using my presser foot as a guide, and I'm moving the needle over to approximately 1/4 inch from this edge of the presser. Okay, so the next step in the process is just to take these pins out. And we're not going to press this one an iron. We're just going to open it. And finger press it along that seam. And then pin that in place. And so the next step would be to take strip 3 and flip it over where they are right sides together. Line those edges up. Pin this in place and sew all the way down this side. Now we're going to keep alternating back and forth and repeating the same process until all of the strips are in place. So I'm going to do that off camera, and don't worry, they are going to be longer than the actual fabric behind it, and that's okay. We're going to trim that off at a later step. And so now I have strips 2 and 3 sewn on, and I've just finger pressed them open. So I thought it would be useful for me to show you the next step. So this is 1, 2, 3, and 4 would go here on this side, and you just flip it upside down and pin it right there and sew it. And then 5 would go on this side, and you could do the same thing, and you could sew them at the same time. So you could go all the way down this side and then flip it over and go all the way down this side, and then you got 2 sides done at a time, and then you can go on from there. So that would be the procedure when you're adding strips on. Okay, so once you are finished adding all the pieces, it should look something like this. Kind of hard to fit it all in here. I'm going to go ahead and leave that corner, this corner off, just because we're going to trim it next. But I wanted you to see what it looks like before we trim it. And so if you turn the piece over like this, I did have some puckering. Now I'm not too extremely worried about the puckering on the back, because this is not going to be visible, and it's going to be hidden by another step that we're going to do in another step. It's going to be completely covered up. So it's not going to be visible, but if you were worried about puckering, then I suggest spray basting your backing to your batting, and that way it doesn't move on you. And that's what I'm going to do with the other side, and I'm okay with using this one because it's not going to be visible, but I want to prevent that next time. And so right now I'm going to trim this off, and I'm going to trim it off on one side and get a straight edge. And then what we wanted the finished dimensions of the bag to be 18 inches across by either 22 or 24 inches. I can't remember how long that I cut the original batting. So I'm going to start with cutting a straight edge, and then once I have it trimmed, I will show you the finished product once it's trimmed. Oh my gosh, it turned out so gorgeous. Let me show you up close. Look at that. I love that color, the way it turned out. It's just that blend of colors. Oh my gosh, I'm so pleased with the way this turned out. Now the next step, I'm gonna go all the way around the outside edges and make sure those edges stay clean. And then I'm probably going to go do some more quilting on this and just go along the edges. I'm not sure what colorway I'm going to do with that, because it's such a gradual thing. I don't know. I think about it. Okay, I have reached a very pivotal point with this project. This is the point of no return. If I mess this up, I don't get a second chance. However, I really want to put zipper pockets on the outside of this tote bag. So I'm going to point you down to the cutting mat so you can see what I am about to do. Okay, so these are my two panels side by side. What I'm going to do is put them right sides together, and then I'm going to make sure that those seams line up on either side. And that's the important part, is that the seams line up. And then I'm going to line them up on the other side as best I can. So now that I have those seams lined up and this butts up, well, look at there. Once you line those seams up, they're not 100% equal on both sides. So it looks like they line up pretty well. There is a discrepancy, and I don't know that you can see that little discrepancy. So we want those seams to line up pretty well. And so since they don't line up this way, I'm going to turn it where it does. And there's that side. I'm going to flip it over, line that up with the edge right there. Bit of a discrepancy on this side too, so I'm going to cut that off. remember which side I wanted to be the top. So I'm just gonna leave it just like it is. And then I think I'm gonna go 7 inches down, and that's where I'm gonna put the zipper part. So I'm gonna line this up 7 inches, and now I'm gonna cut it. And this is the scary part, because if I don't like the way it turns out, I can't do it over again. But hopefully everything will work out well. So I am going to cut this at 7 inches. And there we go. Now, to keep my pieces together with the side that they belong to, I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to take some pins and pin that top and bottom together and set that one aside. Now, we know it's 7 inches. And it's 7 inches by 19 inches. So when I start to do my backing for this, I'm going to need one piece that is 7 inches by 19 inches. And then one piece that is 15 inches by 19 inches for the interior of the pocket. And I will go get that ready, and then I will come back and show you what the next steps are. Okay, so off camera I have prepared my zipper. I put these zipper tabs on the ends and have marked the center of this zipper with the little cutouts. These, hopefully you can see them. So now and I've also marked the center of my top piece, making sure that my top and bottom piece are facing the right direction, and they are not, so I gotta turn it the right side. Okay, so we're gonna be working with this side of the top, but for right now we're gonna turn it around. And so now I'm going to put this double-sided tape along the seam to hold this zipper in place. And so let me do that right fast. Okay, now I'm gonna, with this zipper, with the zipper pull face down, I am going to line up the center of the zipper tape with that center mark on this panel. sure my edges are nice and straight. And then I'm going to put another piece on the top.
Your fill light is on red.
Well, hang on, I'll just give you my
Is that a sticky thing?
double-sided tape. It helps keep everything in place so it don't move. And okay, so once you've got the double-sided tape on top of the zipper, you're just going to put that second panel piece right over the top of it, or actually the lining piece right over the top, and push it down where it doesn't move, because the whole point is to keep everything straight and immobile. And when you're done, it will look like this. Okay, and so I have ironed it down, and then I top stitched along this the zipper, and then I turned it around, and I also basted this part down to the panel, because this is going to be the inside of that zipper pocket. Nobody's ever really going to see this, but it needs to have this lining for when the person opens it, it will be visible when the zipper pocket is open. So it has to have that top lining piece. So I have put the lining piece in, and now I'm going to flip this over, and now I'm going to work on this side of the zipper. Okay, so making sure my stripes are orientated the right way. I'm going to use my double-sided tape again at the top, and then again when I put the lining on the back, and then I'm going to do all of that off camera and sew it all down, and then I will come back and show you what I do next and see what the next step is. Okay, it's the moment of truth here. See how we did. Alright, awesome! Look at those diagonals. They're almost completely perfect in line with each other. I am so stoked about the outside of this bag, and it's turned out so amazing. I'm so proud of myself. Okay, occasionally something goes exactly as planned. Here is the panel with the zipper in, and it's virtually seamless. It's virtually seamless. I am so excited that that diagonal line keeps going even on the other side of the zipper. You can see the zipper, and it does break up the diagonal, but for the most part the diagonal keeps going in a straight line. I am so excited about this. So I did do what I did for the top panel, and I did base them all the way down, and then I trimmed those extra pieces that were on the zip, that were from the zipper tabs. And now this is going to be about once we sew it together, because I'm going to sew it with a 1/2 inch seam. So once we sew it the pieces together, it is going to be the zipper is going to end about 1 inch away from the edge of the tote bag, and I am very comfortable with that. So for right now, I'm gonna move on to the, well, first I'm gonna do the other panel like this, and then I'm going to work on the next step, which will be to sew a back panel on this, all that's the same size as this panel, and that way it makes the pocket on the inside and it gives it some stability, so things don't get lost inside the lining of the bag. So I'm going to work on that next, and I will meet you back here. Here's where I'm going to have to improvise a little bit, because I need some fabric that goes over the whole entire back, and I misjudged how much red that burgundy that I needed for this project, and I only bought 2 yards. So rather than run out to the store and go spend some more money, I had this leftover, this pretty leftover fabric from the apron, the coffee apron that I made, and for the interior of this pocket, because it's not going to be visible from the outside, I do believe it is a complementary color to the outside of the bag, so I am going to use it for the inside of this pocket. So when you open the zipper, you're going to be able to see this pretty fabric, and I am just going to sew it in place all the way around, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm talking about. I learned this technique from sewing the alley bag, and I got the alley bag pattern from So Many Creations, but she used this technique in that bag. So when you open this bag, that's what you see, the lining for the pocket, and it just covers, so it makes that pocket the entirety of the outside of the bag. So very great for traveling. So I'm going to work on that second one, and then I'm going to put the straps on. So I have prepared the straps, and I cut a 5-inch strip out of the interior fabric, and then I used some fusible fleece. And to make this, you just folded it in half and then folded it in half again to meet the halves, which probably doesn't make sense if you're a beginner, but anyway, now that I have these sewn, what I'm going to do is base them in place. So I'm going to go probably 4 inches over from the outside edge, and I'm just going to clip this in place, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the other side and just go 1, 2, 3, 4 inches this way, and just and then I'm just gonna base these in place, and I'm gonna do this to both straps, and then I will be back to show you what I do next. Okay, so now that I've got the handles on there and they're sewed on, now we're going to sew the bag together, because I'm going to box the corners a different way than what I usually do, is cut out the squares in the corner. But in this case, I want these stripes to match up on the seams. So I'm going to match the stripes up on the seams first and sew the sides together, and then I will sew the bottom together, and then I will box the corners. But for right now, I'm just going to match up the sides where these seams meet, and then I'm going to sew them together. I'll meet you back here when I'm done. So to box these corners, you're going to start with the bottom of the bag, and then you're going to fold the sides together where the side seam and the bottom seam line up in a perfect line, as I'm demonstrating here. Alright, so I lost some footage, so I'm just going to go over this right quick. So in order to box the corners, I just matched the seam line, and then I measured where the point is 3 inches on my ruler, and then I just trimmed those off. And so once you have those corners boxed, you're basically done with the outside. So this is a bit of a sneak peek about what the outside of this bag is going to look like. It is really, really pretty, and I am so proud of the way it's turning out. So now I'm going to get start working on the inside of the bag, so I could get the inside of the bag ready, and then we could get this put together. Okay, when I got to this point where I almost put this bag together without remembering to do the recessed zipper part of the bag, it was actually a blessing in disguise to realize I needed to stop right there. Because as I was putting the interior of the bag together, I wasn't really super happy with the quality of the material. I accidentally bought a poly blend instead of a 100% cotton, and the poly blend was really, really thin, and it was not going together as well as a 100% cotton fabric would. So it was actually a really good stopping point, and I made a decision at that point to stop right where I was and wait until I could go get some fabric that I was more happy with. And so there's going to be a part 2 to this. So what you have just watched is just part 1, where I got to that stopping point. And since I'm more about quality than anything else, I would rather stop and wait until I can go get better quality fabric for the interior so it will match the exterior of the bag, than put out uh, a product that I'm not sure is going to be very durable. Because the whole idea behind this bag was to make it a travel bag where you could throw your toiletries and stuff inside this bag and take off for the weekend and not have to worry about larger luggage. So I just didn't think that that poly cotton blend would hold out well to the stress of that kind of use. So stay tuned for part 2, where we actually finish the interior of the bag.